I'm here with Gator. A pretty interesting time. I assume it's good to be Gator at the moment. Life's easy. Only wins
hmm
so far.
Yep, only win so far. Can't complain.
um, of course, the one thing that you guys didn't win was the pro
Uh-huh.
am.
hmm
Um, was that upsetting? Did you care at all? Like, what happened there?
Um, w- you know, of course you always want to win. Um, but at the time we had only had a week or two of practice. This is kind of the same with Outlaws. You bring so many players in from different teams. Just haven't played together, different ways of playing. It takes a bit. It takes just like, even just a few, 3-4 weeks. Just to kind of mesh. And we only had like 10 days or something. On top of that, we did play really close against the Glads, who I think was like a top 3 team in that tournament as well. So, um, I mean, of course, we are not happy with losing, but I'd rather lose there than in the regular season, of course. So,
For sure, for sure. Now, let's start chronologically with how this
hmm
season went, because you went through a pretty
hmm
huge career change. Um,
hmm
I will say maybe it's not as big as people assume, because personally, I heard through the
yeah,
grapevine that you had always been coaching to some degree, already like
hmm
during your PA career. Like, I think like to a
hmm
degree, folks also should understand that a lot of bench players, act as
yeah.
coaches, but not to the degree maybe that you went to.
hmm
So, how much coaching did you do in your playing years, so to speak?
Um, I actually think I did less coaching when I was benched than when I was actually playing. Because when I was playing, it was essentially me trying to not trying, but essentially getting the team to rally around what gave us the best chance of winning. That was, a good chunk of the time how I wanted to play. So um, essentially that was coaching, right? Um, and when I was benched, I did help some here and there. I don't want to like take credit for anything because it was more of like a peanut gallery situation, just kind of chipping in some ideas kind of thing. I wouldn't it's hard to say, I like hard coached or anything, but I'd help out here and there. Um, but I would say I'd always been more of like a captain kind of player. So always voiced my opinions, always created the discussion. So I think generally speaking, I always felt yeah, like kind of like half coach in a sense as a player, anyways.
Now, last season it became obvious, like behind the
hmm
scenes, we heard like Brad was likely going to retire or step back.
Yeah. hmm
And I mean, there were, from what I heard, other
Yeah.
names were brought up. It seemed like
hmm
relatively quickly it was determined that
hmm
you would step up. Was that always going to be the case? Did you always have the eye on, like, okay, I want to transition into a coaching career, and if I can do it at Atlanta, that would be the best?
No, actually. Like after being benched for so long, um, it it kind of it kind of comes to the point to where, um, I was kind of essentially looking for something different. I was also willing to keep playing. But if I was gonna play, I'd want to be like the only player, the only tank. I think I'm not it's not good for me as when I was a player to split time. It's kind of like not how I do well. I think I need to have like full control essentially. Um, but like Brad kind of mentioned it as an option. You could, hey, yeah, if future, you can do this or that. Just like shooting the shit essentially. Um, and then after the season, I had a couple teams reach out. And then another couple that were wanting me to do tryouts and stuff. And these were all teams that I didn't think they could win like a championship, obviously. So even if I can get paid the same, easier job, same money kind of thing, I wasn't really interested in doing something that I can't like win a championship at. At that point, I might as well just go like finish college or some shit. That's what I was doing before anyway. So um, it didn't like interest me really at all.
For sure. Now, there's like something memey about the team that you built, and also
Yeah.
team that you build it in, because
Mm-hmm.
they, I think in the past, Brad was on record saying like a really good team of players could coach themselves practically. You just gotta assemble it. Like, yes, you can give input and whatever, but like most of the impact will be on assembling it. The pay agreed to that. Like 90% of the outcome of the season is probably the roster building. How do you
95%,
yeah, how did you slip into that coaching approach? Do you think like, okay, my goal was to build the right team, and now it's off to the races, and they decide their destiny?
You know, I knew going into it like what would be the best way to build a championship roster. And obviously this team hasn't won anything yet. But going into it, I know that is the best way to go about it. It really is. Nearly every single good team, every team that's won the championship was not because of their coaches. Every team that's won a tournament was not because of their coaches. Every team that's ever done well in Overwatch League was because of the roster. And that's like non-debatable. It's just not up for debate. I actually think coaches get too much credit. Especially like there's some that just get undeserved credit, honestly. And behind the scenes, a lot of players know that at the end of the day, there's only so much a coach can do. I think the coaching matters. Like at the top, it matters the least, and as you go down in the league, it matters more and more and more and more and more. I think like a mid-table team, like a really great coach, could have them honestly punch up a few spots. Or a insane staff that works their ass off could have the 20th ranked team punch up to 15, something like that. But there's only so much you can really do at the end of the day. And so yeah, I think going into I know how much I could do, and I could work 18 hours a day, but at the end of the day, like it really is going to come down to the roster. There's not really much else to it.
For sure. Now, that sounds like you're just sitting there, like literally telling Lip to go kill in scrims and whatnot. Like, what does your actual day-to-day look like?
My day-to-day is essentially providing solutions when they need solutions, and offering all the paths. Like I figure myself as like this is like when you go to the bowling alley and they put up the kids things. I'm like the rails on each side, for them, and I keep them on the right path. Um, you know, make sure all the needs are met in and out of game. The mentals are fine. And then just provide options, and then just explain options well, and just help provide solutions essentially. But I really think the most important thing is creating a good environment. That's like probably the number one thing within a team. I don't even think that's debatable. I think the number one thing is environment, and creating an environment to where essentially every player becomes a coach. And then that's just going to make the team significantly better. And it'll, at the end of the day, when you load into a map and people play some shit you've never seen, it's not going to matter if your players don't know how to adapt or on the fly think. They got to be able to think for themselves. So so I think just creating the right environment is probably the most important thing in that kind of a situation. So that's kind of what I knew going into building the roster. Is I just want to get a good group of guys that are very talented and are not toxic. I completely avoided all the toxic players, avoided all the people that cause problems, hard to work with, all the assholes, avoided all of them at all costs. So I got like the good group, and I'm very happy with that.
Is it challenging to create that culture when you're, not capable of speaking the language of most of the roster?
Yeah, it's very hard. I would say it's probably double the work, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I'd say it's very hard. Wizard helps a lot. He's had a lot of experience. He translates for us. He's always cooking the players' food, Korean food, works out with them, helps in kind of like a mentor role as well. So he helps as much as he can. And then some of it's just going to be on the players. The guys are the really good guys, and they know how to create a culture as well. A lot of it falls on the staff, but a lot of it also falls on them. You know, if they want to create a good, if they want to be like good teammates, you know, there's only so much you can do as a staff, and that showed in other teams that's started to crumble already. So yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Sweet. What is Wizard up to anyway? Like, is he still chipping in strategically, or like, is he translating a lot? Like, what's Wizard up to?
Kind of just everything. You know, we're essentially we're a two-man coaching staff, and then we have legit RC as like our team manager, that helps just all the managerial stuff, and that it kind of just ends there. Brad helped a lot in the off season. He helped like the transition go really well. In fact, he helped me secure a couple players, free of charge. Was not, you know, literally. He helped a lot with this roster. It was like his, you know, like parting gift essentially. You know, trying to set the org and me and the team up well. But outside of that, it's kind of just everybody doing kind of everything. So yeah, I'd say Wizard does kind of just everything top to bottom. Whatever's needed that day, if I'm being honest, you know. If we're not doing great in a scrim, then we'll worry about the end game. And then if we're just, you know, if it's a 3 scrim day and it's an 18-0 map day, then I don't know, we'll go work out with them or get them some food kind of thing, you know, like whatever's needed, whatever's like, you know, required that day essentially, really. There's no script, I guess. We kind of have like a rough idea of what we wanted to do going into the season and how we wanted to, you know, create that, but definitely day to day. There's like actually no set thing, I'd say.
How many days right now are 18-0 days?
Probably like a couple a week. It's like a couple a week probably. I normally, but that's kind of like this. That's a skewed thing though, because for instance, tomorrow we scrim Outlaws and Glads, and I left that as a 2-block day because I got probably the 2 best teams to scrim, right? Just because I already know it's gonna be sweaty, right? And then we'll have plenty to review after. We'll probably want to review hour or 2 after that as well. So I wanted to leave more room before people are dead beat tired. You know, so we lose a map there, map 2 there, whatever, you know, or even lose a scrim, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, we've definitely been doing well. So.
Right. Now, theoretically, like you already described, it's a relatively, you know, like I always thought there's a spectrum of how you can coach in terms of like, you know, an authoritarian approach, what the coach does goes. And then on the other side, it's just like, okay, I'm providing beverages to my star players. And then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're good.
Right. And then, like, I feel like that you already describing not maybe necessarily the water carrier, but like a pretty open one where the players take a lot of responsibility. Now, I will say that structure is probably less of a problem towards the social situation that you were in, because with Hawk, you've been, you know, a tank frontline for a long time, so you were teammates, presumably on one, you know, hierarchical ladder. And then you stepped up and became the head coach, not even just an assistant coach or whatever, but the head coach. So theoretically, like you should now be taking the reins over him. Is there anything weird about that relationship now?
No, not at all. Because I'm not super authoritarian because I don't really need too much with this team. You know, like, when you have to, you know, you can't let people slack off. You really have to create a very rigid structure, and you have to keep this like the leash short for sure. But with Hawk, no, he works really hard. Like, he doesn't try to take advantage of any situation. He doesn't try to like get me to play favorites or anything. So I don't. There's no like issue there. If I'm being honest, it's almost essentially like nothing's really changed within my relationship with him, I say.
All right. Now let's talk about the important part then, that you agreed with in terms of the roster building, how that went. So, okay, let me try to tell you how I thought it worked, and then you tell me how much of that is correct.
Okay.
So you start out with
top to bottom.
All right. So you start out with Hawk and Vigilante.
Okay. Yep.
Vigilante is maybe unbeknownst to the public pretty good friends with all a lot of other top players. So he's also instrumental in talking to people, saying like Atlanta is a good team, blah blah blah. Then you source the market and you see, oh my god, a lot of top tier talent is now available, and you also have a solid budget to compete in that market.
Yep.
And you immediately try to compete for both LIP and Stalker. Is that how it worked? Is that your first move?
No, actually. So I had Vigi and Hawk, and first things first was to look for that flex DPS role. There's plenty of people that can aim in the league, and you're supposed to do your due diligence of reaching out to everybody kind of and going around and checking for everything. And Brad helped me actually a lot with this one as well, starting out. With Stalker, we reached out to Soul. We essentially acquired his contract, changed it around a little bit, and got him he was first things first. He was the first guy. And then after, actually, we were trying to restructure Kai's contract. We're trying to get him in there, fit him in there. And I wanted to keep him. And mind you, I'm thinking Lip's like not available. Like, why would he be available? That's just stupid. That doesn't make sense. So that's the equivalent of me reaching out to Shock, being like, hey man, can I have proper? Like it's just not realistic. So so we're trying to work out a deal with Kai, and I actually offered sugar free. And the idea was going to be to have Stalker, sugar free, Kai as DPS line. And that would have been really good. Worked out really well. Obviously, sugar free is showing that he's good, right? I think he didn't get enough. I don't think he got looked at enough this offseason. I actually think he got a bit disrespected by a lot of teams. So I'm happy he's doing well in Vancouver. But yes, I legitimately did actually offer him. But then all the while we're kind of like waiting, he kind of, how do you say? He was just kind of weighing his options out, and he knew the risk. I told him, like I can't wait around, man. Like I'm gonna look for other options, like it's just kind of how it works. Like no hard feelings, and he knew, okay, no worries. So then pretty much I wanted Kai and him, and then I guess I kind of just talked to these dudes in Shanghai randomly. I honestly thought it was just like a shot in the dark. I was like, I might as well try, right? Like, what's the worst they can say is no, he's not available, right? So man, this is like every night I was up till probably midnight to like 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, right? Because this is all Korean and Chinese times. So I got a hold of their guy, and I was using he was one of their Chinese managers at Shanghai, and then I was using a Korean translator from Chinese and then English to Korean on the phones. It was like double two-way translating, and then essentially, essentially they were like, he's actually might be available, and Shanghai seemed like they wanted to be a good org, and they were willing to let him go and go to a good team that was interested. And then I got to talk to Lip, and he was interested in playing in this region as it being a better region and getting experience and learning better English, because English is already pretty good. I talked to him in the past, and he's actually really good English for someone who's never played on a mixed roster. So, and then all the while this is happening, pretty much not telling a single soul on this entire planet that he's available, right? Like, why would I ever tell them that? Why would I? So essentially, it's never done till it's done. So we kind of we've worked out a deal with them, absorbed his contract, and made sure he was happy with it and whatever. So we figured if we got Lip, well, you only need 2 DPS now, honestly. So did we kind of just let Kai and Sugar Free kind of go to the teams that they're kind of wanting to go to anyways. I think Kai was really wanting to play with Kev. You never know how much longer the league's going to go, so he really wished wanted to play with his buddy and live in LA and all that good stuff. So it worked out for everybody. I really think so. And yeah, people were really surprised when we got Lip. They were I got messages from a couple other teams, and they're quite upset. They didn't even know who's available. And I'm like, well, kind of isn't that what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to check to see if people are available, yeah. So yeah, so then once we got LIP, the next thing was going to be fill out the support line, and we were going to solo tank too. That was the plan, was to solo tank. So we were going to fill out the support line, and then we were looking at Bliss, we were looking at Vendame, those two for main supports, and we actually watched VODs. We got sold the dream for some other different people. We watched their VODs and we're very, 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 very unimpressed. And then we watched Chio's VOD, and I'm quite confident that is why they won the grand finals. After watching him and Fielder's VOD, and it's not even like debatable. How hard those two carried in finals was just like criminal that they didn't both get MVP off it, if I'm being honest. So we were in negotiations with them for a while. We were really trying to figure out something, a way to fit them into the budget. All jokes aside, people think our roster is like the most expensive. It's definitely not. Actually, a lot of people take either pay cuts or something to want to come here. For instance, Theo did not take his highest offer, and neither did Fielder. Fielder got offered, I think 2 offers actually that were higher, and one was significantly higher actually, to a great team as well. But that's kind of how it works when you start off with a core of Stalker, Lip, Hawk, Vigi, right? It starts getting a little bit easier to start selling the fuel supports to come here. So once again, Steffi helped me a lot with that one out. He really helped close the deal on those two. And that took 2-3 weeks, and then they moved the deadline also. Yeah. And man, we had their contract done, everything, and then they moved the deadline. I'm like, oh man, and then the whole while other teams are trying to pry them away as well, and so that was stressful as well. This is all probably like every night for hours building the roster, pretty essentially from scratch, really. And there's a lot of other players involved that we've reached out to, talked to, never offered any of the other ones. We actually got every player that we offered, so I'm very happy about that. Other than technically sugar free, but that was also, that was a bit of a different situation as well. And then after we got those players, we kind of, I essentially kind of felt like Hawk was taking the bait a bit of the solo tank. Everyone has this idea that they can solo tank, but when you really come down to it, if I could squeeze out a little bit more budget to get someone like a Korean player to play monkey and ball for you, so that they can common Korean when they're playing most like the hard dive stuff, it's gonna make his life like a lot easier and a lot less stressful. If this kid's gonna come in and wake up every morning and sit a primal lobby for an hour and a half, you can essentially split up the workload. I think, and he kind of saw that. He knew it would be best, so we squeezed out that. Funny enough, actually, is we had. I can say this actually. We did offer one other tank though before Donghack actually, and we offered Jumbin. And we had it done. Like it was done. Like it was signed, sealed, locked in, everything. I'm not even joking. I might as well just order the guy a jersey kind of thing. And I'm gonna be real, like Shock pulled some Shock shit. Like it's just the classic shit over there. So I'm not even gonna go into details. Like I'm just gonna let it be. Like it is what it is, kind of thing. It's all good. So, and I remember Hawk saying, Hawk was trying to get Jumbin to come, and he was like, bro, like I promise you, like you're not gonna want to play. Like our supports are really fucking good. Like I'm telling you, as a tank player, just ignore the DPS. DPS is irrelevant for tanks for the most part. Like everybody's got good DPS players. Like everyone does. But man, I'm telling you, like as a tank player, you're gonna want to play with our 3 supports. Like I promise you, just come here. Well, obviously so far our supports are just insane, right? So, that's his loss. So then after that, we actually did tryouts. Junbin, we didn't try out. We just offered him. He was a player I was comfortable just offering. Knew what he could offer. Then we did tryouts. We tried out Helen, Fate, Marvel, and a couple other guys, and then Donghak. And Donghak's mechanics are just incredible, honestly. It's like S tier mechanics. He's a new player. He's young. He's a lot to learn. The other guys are trying to catch him up as fast as they can. And then that's essentially pretty much where it ended. But yeah, Donghak was the last by far because he's the only one we actually physically tried out. Everyone else, it was more of asking around about them, asking former players, coaches, teammates about them, and then of course watching like POVs. But POVs only tells you so much about a player. You really need to know like their mental. It really matters. So yeah, it was just a long. It was like a probably I was about a 2.5 month just like blitzkrieg man to make the roster. I actually feel like that was more work and more stressful than the season in a weird kind of way. Just messaging all day long every day, up all night long kind of thing, you know. It's a lot easier, and then all the while, the second you built the roster, then you gotta start doing the housing and the visa, and it just keeps going and going and going and going, and the logistical stuff. So yeah, it's a lot. But once it's done now, so it makes it easy. I get why people build these NA teams. It's just so simple and easy. Honestly, it's I would say it's kind of late. It's just being lazy. If I'm being honest, like if I got hired and they said build a team, it would be so much easier just to build like an NA team. Honestly.
Now there's the NEA team, pretty much like literally.
Oh yeah. That's true. We had most of their players.
So was that never an option?
I think it would have been an option for sure, 100%. The problem with that is that the team as a whole underperformed last year for the price it costed, essentially, and that was supposed to be like the NA dream or the Western dream, and it kind of just like didn't work for many reasons. No one person, no group of people. It was just like it was just a lot of things. It wasn't. It is what it is, but I think kind of just everybody got, I'd say a bit of a, not a bad taste in their mouth, but it was more of just let's start fresh kind of thing, you know. And we had just got Vigi, and we kind of were just really confident with going with like mixed, like a full mixed roster, honestly. Um, I think like in retrospect, don't get me wrong, like that would have been an awesome team to like coach and have fun with. You know, like I don't know where we'd be at right now with them, but I know it's like a good group of guys, and they're a shit ton of fun. So you know, like selfishly, I thought about it, like that'd be pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it kind of worked out for everybody. I think just it wasn't a good fit, I guess. Yeah.
Would you have built that roster slightly differently than they ended up doing?
That's bait. uh, no, because you got to keep like the whole AT guys. So you got to keep them all top to bottom. You can't change it. And it was perfect how they did it. They got everybody. They got everybody back, plus Majed, who was one of the boys, and then they're just missing Reiner. But Kalush is just Kalush is insane. So he plays everything. It's not a big deal. So no, I wouldn't have changed anything. I would have got the same team because that's kind of the whole point of rebuilding it, right?
Then I guess the question is then, do you think they would look differently? Like, because you said like it's really hard for a main tank to work on or tank to work on all those roles. Do you think they would look much differently if Rana was actually with them?
No, because I think Kalush is actually a really, really, really good player, and I think the reasoning we did that is mostly for communication, and um, like just like a split up workload. But that's not like that wouldn't be like any kind of a communication thing there. So I don't think that would have changed much. I think I also think Kalush is a great leader over there. I'm pretty sure. So I don't think that would have really done much.
For sure. Now,
and it's not like a Doom meta or anything, right? Where Reiner is like crazy on Doom, or Ball. It hasn't been Ball or Doom meta, which is like Reiner's like insane on those two heroes. And if it was Ball or Doom meta, like they would really want him. But it's been like all shit. Clues is really good at anyway. So
for sure. Now, okay, let's go a little bit actively into the season and your
Mhm.
strategic choices, because like I talked to Jake, and Jake was like, it's really interesting to see that you guys are seemingly forcing as much D.Va as you're doing, right? Like I think you probably have the highest play share of D.Va in the league at the moment, and the question is, like, it seemed like maybe Monkey was hard meta for the longest time, not necessarily as much for you.
Yeah.
Was it just because you wanted Hawk in the starting position at that point in the season, or is it really like a decision based on meta and balance and D.Va actually being better?
I think we just did what gave us the best chance of winning, honestly. And there might be a little bit of bias of getting a little bit of playtime, but I don't even think that's really a thing. I made it very clear from day one. I have no bias. I don't care who plays, when they play. I just don't care. Like I'm just gonna try to like win. I'm not playing favorites. I've had it happen on teams in the past. I will refuse to play favorites. So I don't think Hawk got in there because he just to get playtime or anything. I think it actually works really well. When we roll out in a match and he's playing, it's because it's been working very well in scrims. If of course, shit doesn't work the same sometimes in matches, but there's like a reasoning. We're doing what we're doing. And I also think a lot of players just don't have very, very strong D.Va players. Hawk is one of the only D.Va players that, how to say, he's a lot like Hanbin on the D.Va. Like he'll find the clutch kills. He's not just a peel D.Va. He's not playing D.Va Sigma. Like playing like he's not just AFKing. Like he gets shit done. So he makes it look good too. I'd say it's probably his best hero. So
sure. Now another choice is, so sometimes you have metas or heroes that are clearly busted and everyone has to play them. Sometimes you have situations where everyone in the league might be playing one thing, and then one team comes out and just cheeses it hard enough. Also, maybe has a player that's good enough, and they force the meta, maybe even late in the week, shortly before playoffs and whatnot. So, what is the situation? Like, the play rate of Sombra is not that high in the league, right? It's 40%, but so is Sombra hard meta, or is LIP hard forcing the meta?
I don't think. We've almost stopped playing Sombra a couple different times. Because man, like if you show up to scrims one day and the team's just not like full, everything's clicking, and you're not 3-2-1ing the exact right guy at the right time and confirming the kill, then you will instantly lose the fight. So I don't think it's meta. I think it's just good. I think it's annoying. It swaps it up. I think it keeps people honest. It's a very honest, like it's a dishonest hero, but it keeps people honest. You know what I mean? Like they don't get to stray off to their team. They don't get to do like stupid shit. They need to think about ults in between the team fight. They need to think about how to outplay the Sombra. There's a lot of work involved for the enemy team as well, and a lot of work for you. You're pretty much making both teams work harder. It's like essentially making it more unfun for both teams. Is kind of how I see it. So I don't think it's meta. I just think Lip's really, 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 really good at Sombra. I do think it's good. I think I would say that other heroes can do the exact same thing in 80% of the situations. Like you really don't need to play Sombra a lot if you really don't want to. Like there's a couple maps that might be meta on, but map dependent heroes are not meta.
Is it then just because like it feels like the gap between Lip and then the next best Sombra, whoever that may be, is pretty large, and also he just sometimes pulls some absolute bullshit out of his behind, right? Like it shouldn't work the way it does. So is it based on his quality?
Yeah, I'd say it's based on him, for sure. I've noticed, actually it's funny because I've noticed the Sombra play in this region has gotten much, much better since he's been here, which is kind of funny because it's kind of a common thing where players will watch other players back when they played after scrims. They'll watch. I know for a fact people are watching his POV after scrims, right? And after match, like it's not, I'm like not even debatable. Like I just know they are. So I noticed a lot of people have been kind of mirroring his playstyle and kind of copying a lot of the things he does. There's a lot of things he does that are very small but makes like massive impacts in the game where you really don't really think about it. So yeah, I definitely think so. But I also think that he's made other people around him better. So it's made more pretty like if he's S tier Sombra, he's made other people B plus. There's a lot of other people that are actually honestly catching up. They're not as good as him, but they're catching up. They're actually like pretty good Sombra players now. So I think that just the Sombra quality in the region's gone up. So it makes it feel like it's better.
Sure. Now, it sounds like, so you guys are playing a lot of D.Va more so than other teams. You don't think Sombra is necessarily meta. It's just keeping people honest. What is even like if you think like everyone had more time with this meta or with this patch, and eventually like we converge into one meta understanding? What do you think that looks like? Is it one comp, or are we actually in a really diverse situation?
I think it's the same thing as last year's Midseason Madness. It was a great patch. I think there's a lot of options right now, and there's a lot of counter picking. That's the problem. Is there's not one meta comp because it feels like there's a lot of things that get countered. So it's a lot of counter swapping, a lot of counter picking, counter stratting, and then there's a lot of map specific comps too. Like some of these 3-fight comps. It's pretty hard to beat them. You got to pick your own 3-fight comp, some kind of brawl, whether it's Ryan, Ram, whatever. So I really don't think it would be any set meta at all. It's not like playoff meta. That playoff meta should have never happened. That should never be a thing in this game. It's at least not for a while. But I enjoy the kind of counter picking and swapping and giving teams like options of what to play. I think that's cool.
For sure. So I assume you're happy with the decision of the league to not change to the current life patch?
Yeah, that would not have been fun. It would have been really boring. I think we've been a great Junker Queen team, but it would just be really boring. Like, I have not touched rank since that patch has come out. Like, I'm just not playing. So,
sure,
it's very,
does it?
Very interesting.
Does it feel okay? So I'm trying to like put myself into your position. You're currently beating scrims, probably not losing much, not really losing matches. You just probably beat the second best team in the league. Is it getting a little scary because you don't really see what the opposition is at midseason, right? Like, is it maybe it's coming from Glads again, maybe it's Outlaws, but generally speaking, like you're probably in a fight mostly against yourself at this point, right?
I expect to replay the Outlaws or Glads or something in like finals of Korea. I'm pretty sure the APAC teams are just very weak, like flaky teams. I think it'll be just like last year's Midseason Madness, where the top 3 or 4 teams are all the Western teams from this region.
Are you concerned because of the treble?
No. I mean, of course, any way you slice it, they have a small advantage, but those guys like they're getting to play in the same arena, same setups. They're sleeping in their home beds. It's the classic APAC advantage, so it's not really like a big deal. Like, I get they have to give the weaker region like some kind of advantage. I get it. Like, I don't even blame. I actually don't even blame them. Like, it's fine. It was the same thing with like the Hawaii stuff last time. Like, every single time we went to Hawaii, we have to do this long flight, 29 COVID test, and those guys are sleeping in their beds at night. So it's all good. Like, it's nothing new. It's all good.
Sure. Now, the NA region was said to be very competitive, and also the stratification of the league was pretty much predicted.
Yeah.
The one thing that isn't in the upper stratosphere right now is the shock. Did you think they were going to be better than they are right now?
No, I didn't think so. I was very confident that they would be bad, but I didn't think they'd be this bad. I thought they would be like a gatekeeper team. I did not think they'd be going to Map 5 against awful teams. I thought they would be the team that just dominates the bad teams, but then just can't quite compete with like the top 3, 4, 5, right? That's what you would think. But they have a lot of weird stuff. I'll give them a few excuses for their stuff lately, but I definitely didn't see them as like the team to beat or something going into the season.
For sure. Okay. Can you explain, because a lot of people evaluated this O2 core as pretty,
Supports.
solid.
Supports. That's why.
Okay.
The supports is why. Yeah. Um, and I also think that the support, and I think he's saying is I think he's a good player. I just think he has the pressure, to just go in there and play with proper. I think OT players are feeling the same thing with the Toronto right now. They're feeling the pressure of this coming back together, and it's supposed to be like a just what do you call it? Just like just like a magical, just like return of the team kind of thing, and a fairy tale ending kind of thing. That's what I was looking for, and they're feeling the pressure of it. I also think there's people on Shock that put a lot of pressure on their players, so I think they're just feeling it. I think that team's just not having fun, unfortunately. So I think that's why. I think their roster isn't the best. The roster is not the best, and the pressure of rejoining each other and having the expectations of the Shock and of the O2 Blast is just like it's crushing them.
You talked about this support line. Do you think? Yeah, you also said you looked at Vindame. Is that a guy that should be playing both roads technically? In the Violet position. Do you think they would be better if they had Violet still?
Not to shit talk Vindame, because I think he's a solid player. I really do. But I mean, Violet's a hard player to replace. Like, let's be honest. He's like a LeBron right now, where I get LeBron as maybe he's not at his peak, but he's still like, you still want him on your team. You know what I mean? Like, he's still like one of the best. He might not be number one, but like, what's the difference between number one and number 3 or 5 or something? Like you want him on your team. He's a good player. So yeah, I mean, I think they just straight up lost out on that one. And I think I just expected some players to improve faster. But I don't think it's necessarily one player or just the support line. It's just, it's just I think a lot of it is really just the pressure on that team. They're feeling it.
Sure. Do you empathize to some degree with what's currently happening, because you were in the middle of some shitstorms over your days, right? Like, and it feels like
yeah, of course,
of course, man.
Like, I of course I love when other people lose. Like, I want all the other top teams to lose, right? Like, I don't fucking want them to win. When I watch a Outlaws match, I want them to lose. If I watch a Boston match, I want them to lose. I want every other team to lose. I want it to be even as possible for everyone else, and then we're at the top, right? But outside looking in, when you talk to the players and see their situations, man, like, it's rough. Like, people don't understand like the shit these players go through. Like, I'm not even joking. These kids are like daily just agonizing mentally, the shit they go through. So yeah, of course I feel for them. I don't want that shit to happen. So it's the same thing with like Toronto, man. Like, I don't want them to go through this like all this losing shit. Like, and it isn't any fun. Like, the whole point of this shit is supposed to be fun, right? So it'd be one thing if they didn't have the pressure. I think those two teams specifically are having the worst season because of the pressure and the expectations on their rosters going into the season with, and on top of that, coming together, coming together as like teams rejoining and stuff, has just been brutal for them.
Sure. Now some are sort of interpreting this as the course correction on an over-interpretation of how good Proper is. Do you agree?
No, I think he's insane still. I think he's still probably the best player in the game, or not, maybe not the best, but like he's like like one of the best. And when you're at like the top, there's no like who's the best. It's just like who's the best on that day or who's the best at this hero. He's a top player. Like, there's no doubt about that. There's no correction or anything on him. He's insane. I'm very confident in that as well. That's why it's even almost more frustrating that they're not good, because they got like an easy Kickstarter there. They got the guy that everybody wanted out of contenders.
For sure. Are you okay? So mid-season meta seems sort of locked in. You guys are doing very well.
Yep.
Reasonably speaking, this is probably like your heavy favorites at this point. Are there like the rest of the season, like looking towards the long-term goal, and I think it's pretty obvious that this team was built to win the league. Are you
Yeah.
a little bit concerned in terms of the meta gamble that might be happening? And are you generally confident in everything that the game could be throwing at you?
Yeah, I don't think we're unconfident in really any meta, honestly. I actually think we're the most meta-proof team in the league. Um, of course there's metas you'd always want. Like I don't want to roll out in it to be a Torb like a Torb Junkrat meta, man. Like we could just lose to anybody that day, you know what I mean? Like nobody wants that shit. So there's some metas that are of course is gonna give us a higher percentage of winning, let's just be honest. So at the end of the day, that's had to happen every single year in the league. I'm sorry, but it's whoever gets lucky with the meta at the end of the year. That's kind of how it works. Fuel got lucky last year. Year before it was Shanghai. And I'm telling you, every single year somebody gets lucky. It was lucky as shit for Shock when they got a random hog widow meta. And Shanghai was dominating the whole year, but then all of a sudden they just have to play Roadhog and play. It really is luck. There's a lot of luck in it. It'd be delusional not to think so. So, it's not something I like keeps me up at night. It is what it is kind of thing. There's not much I can do about it. We built the most meta-proof team we could. That's all we can really do.
Is there a duration in your mind that should be a minimum for how long teams have with a patch in order to, maybe decrease some of that volatility?
Yeah, probably a couple weeks, minimum. But man, like sometimes it takes a month for a meta to evolve. Kiriko was the easy one because it just came out. It was just a new hero, a busted new hero, so it made it really easy. Yeah, a couple weeks is fine. I'm not really worried about that too much because at the end of the day, everybody normally, like for instance, I wouldn't care if we showed up to Atlanta and it was a 50 FPS PC, as long as everybody's on a 50 FPS PC, right? So as long as everybody gets the same amount of time, I don't think it really matters. If anything, if you're complaining about that, you're just bitching. There's not really anything to complain about.
Sweet. Then we thank you for the interview and best of
Thank
luck
you
in the
very much.
mid-season.
Thank you.